How has your organization reviewed or changed your benefits policies to attract or retain employees? And I'm going to throw that one to Mandy first.
Okay. We'll do the little guy first. Well, I mean, aside from developing our written benefits, 401k and paid time off, I really think it's the unwritten benefits that help with attracting and retaining employees the most. So the first would be everything we do and every decision I make, it has our purpose at the center of what we do. So with our office, our purpose is to help people and to heal people. So I feel like everyone wants to have, a meaning of what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing at the office. So we do a lot of training and audios. We share a lot of success stories where it's easy for the doctors to see our purpose because we're with patients all day. So we get to see people go from, suffering and in pain up to feeling a lot better, being able to do what they want to do. And so that keeps us, inspired and motivated. But for the staff, they don't have that. They don't always get to see, why they have to make all those calls and whatever it might be. So we make an effort to really share those success stories so that they know, the why behind what they're doing. I think the second and maybe one of the bigger benefits that helps with retention is flexibility. Like Cindy mentioned, I really try to offer the best schedule for work-life balance. I have a 3-year-old, I have a 3-month-old, so I understand needing a work-life balance. And we have several employees who have military husbands who are gone a lot. We have several who have been in school throughout. I think I had 4 employees who've been full-time students, and I help them work with their schedule knowing that that means they're probably going to leave me when they graduate. And then I have many who have young families, so that balance is different for everyone. So I really try to just keep an open communication about what's the best schedule for you. Is it 25 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours? If it changes in 6 months, then let's talk about that, and we can adapt.
And Mandy, you don't have an all-female staff, so tell us how that works for everyone on staff.
That I don't have?
You don't have an all, how does the flexible schedule work for all your staff?
Yeah, I mean, well, male, female doesn't really matter to me. I mean, everyone has a different balance. Some are single parents, so that affects when they need to get out of school. Several have moved here from out of state for this position. Some of the doctors have, so that affects their support network. So really, I take it case by case, I guess, and just try to keep an open line of communication that way, because a stressed employee is no good for anyone, them or the workplace. So I really try to just work within, obviously doing what the business needs to do, but also what's best for them.
Jim, that question to you. What kind of policy or benefits changes have you utilized to retain employees?
Well, I think Mandy said something very poignant in her remarks, that I think regardless of the size of your organization, I think it's the unwritten policies and benefits that are really what is the core of your organization. You certainly have to have the written policies, the benefit programs, competitive compensation, but every other week we bring in a new group of employees, from, again, across all the different disciplines and professions in the organization. I personally try to attend each and every one of those and welcome and introduce them to the organization, but one of the things I do during that session is ask, well, why do you want to work for Columbus Regional Health? And you would typically say, well, gee, I needed a job, right? Or I need benefits, or whatever the traditional. I don't hear that. What I hear is, I've heard Columbus Regional Health is a great place to work. I have a friend here, a family member, they say it's a great place to work. And it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's not the benefits, it's not the pay, it's what does it feel like when you come in through the door every day? Is it welcoming? Do you feel like you're contributing to not only just the care of the patients, but furthering the mission of our organization? So those are, I think, are important things. So it does get back to values, it gets back to culture, and I think culture can be a fleeting thing, and it's something that needs constant attention. So I do think it is really that unwritten policy and that you have in place. We have to make sure our written policies in place support that culture, but it does start with what are our values, and how do our policies support those values. And one of our core values is really valuing the workforce. And I always say during that new employee orientation and other times, we spend an awful lot of our time in the workplace. And actually, I think your colleagues in the work environment, they get more out of our employees sometimes maybe than their families do. Our employees and team members put a lot of effort into that. So I think it's morally and ethically part of our responsibility to create an environment that's positive, it's welcoming, and leverage the skills and the gifts that the employees bring to the organization. I think we constantly have to be looking at how do we create an environment to do that. So that's sort of at the core of all of this. But, beyond that, one of the things we've recently instituted at Columbus Regional Health is a just minimum wage. And there's been a lot of talk about that in the news on the political level and the like, but I often worried that a lot of our entry-level employees were struggling financially. And so a couple years ago, we implemented and moved our base rate up to a minimum of $12 just to start. Even at that, I think still some of our entry-level folks struggle with that. But so that's an example of putting our values into a policy or an approach. So we've also really been very sensitive to what level are you able to receive benefits. You have to work a minimum of 16 hours a week to be eligible for our benefit plan, a relatively low threshold in compared to some other organizations, because sometimes our employees are working just so that they have access to those benefits. So there's a couple of examples there.
Amy?
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Mandy and Jim said. The environment is really important, and I think a lot of that is, how people behave and how leaders lead and how they're able to manage this flexibility and this balance, I think, with employees that we need to do. And that's definitely a focus for us. I think also as a very large employer trying to compete for national and global talent, we want to make sure that we've got good jobs and that we've got competitive pay and benefits. And so we continually review and look at what our benefits are, and we also get feedback obviously from employees and those resource groups we talked about before. And one of the things that we did recently was we introduced a new parental leave policy. And again, that was feedback we got from lots of employees as well. And so essentially what that does is it provides 12 weeks of fully paid leave for what we call the primary caregiver, and 6 weeks of fully paid leave for the secondary caregiver. And again, that is not gender specific. The man, a woman, a same-sex couple, whichever, somebody can designate who's the primary and who's the secondary. And we think that's a really, having a child or adopting a child or getting a foster child placed with you is an exciting time, but it also can introduce some logistical challenges and other things. So we really want to support our employees during that time. And so that's, for example, of one of the recent policies that we've implemented.